Hello everyone, I am making this video. It is about defense generals. I was asked to do a video about it, so I think it's a good idea because it's an important and interesting subject. And first things first, I don't like making 1 or 2 minute videos because you leave a lot of information out, and that is not the way to go. I like to make informed decisions, and that means that I do need a lot of information, and that is what you're going to be getting here. I am not going to be telling you use this general or use that general because I don't know what kind of player you are. I don't know what troops you have. I know how you do your defense. And so I am going to be focusing on teaching you how to choose the proper general for your defense. Okay, so in that case, we're going to be starting by saying that some people are still very small and they are still able to ghost their troops. So when you ghost your troops, that means that all your troops are going to be outside of the city. Okay, in that case, you're not really doing any defense because your troops are not fighting. And for that purpose, you wouldn't really need a defense general. The only thing I can suggest is maybe someone like Shahar al-Dur, because this is our peacetime general. During NAP, when you're not fighting, this general would help you improve the resource production and it will also help protect your food. So that is what we use when we are not fighting. So if you're ghosting your troops, that's all you need to do. And it is still a good idea, a good strategy of defense to be ghosting, because ghosting your troops allows you to protect your troops without the need of a general, and that saves you a lot of gems, a lot of runestones, a lot of resources that you don't want to be spending in a general, especially if you're a small player. Okay, you don't need to get the gear for that general, you don't need to refine and so on. So it is a way to do defense. But for the rest of this video, we're going to be assuming that you are a bigger player. You started to grow, maybe you're 2, 3, 4 billion power, and you're starting to do defense because you have more troops than you can ghost. So you're being hit, you're being attacked, and you need to defense to do the defense. So in that case, the first thing that I would suggest that you need to know what kind of keep you are. Maybe you are a trap keep, maybe you're a small player, maybe you're a big player with a lot of siege, maybe you do defense this way, that way. So we need to know what kind of keep you are. So for that, you can go to the troop details. In here you will know how many troops you have, and the troops themselves are down here. All the numbers are here, and the problem is that all the troop types here are mixed. So it is a bit more difficult to see what you have in here. So if you want to know something very specific, you might need to go to the stables, if you want to check your mounted troops, and you need to navigate here in order to see what you have, right? So all my layers are here. You have to navigate and see what troops you have. So to make it easier, I would suggest that you go ahead and make something like this. This is nothing but a very simple Excel sheet. And in here, I just added all the troops that I have. This is my current information, real current information, December 4th of 2024. This is what I have. So having these numbers here, I also rounded the numbers so it gets easier to read. So having these numbers here will make it a lot easier for me to see how I am working, how I am doing my defense. So obviously we're going to be using my keep as an example of how to determine what and how you are working on your defense. So we can see that I have some siege layers in here. I don't have a lot of them. I have T4s. I have some 20 million tier 11s, some 12s, 13s, and 14s. And then we have here a bunch of mounted low tiers. This is what we call a pyramid or a mounted wall. And this is one way of doing defense. This is actually one of the first ways that we start doing defense. After that, you can see here that I have some layers and some upper mounted troops. I have these ones because I like killing monsters, and this is how I do it. So after that, we see that range and ground. I have some T1 ground. I have some 5 million layers of ground and range. And I have some T12 range and 13s and 14s as well. For ground, I also have 13s and 14s, which means that, as you can see, I am a keep that has a bunch of mixed troops. Okay, so That being said, we can see that I would be doing my defense with my siege first, then a bunch of mixed troops, and then my wall. That is how I work. You have to see how you are built and how you normally get attacked when you are playing Battlefield. If you don't play Battlefield, I highly recommend that you do it because we learn a lot of stuff from there. And it is free, you get rewards, win or lose, so it is a really, really good idea to be involved in that Battlefield. In Battlefield, I learned that normally my first attacks, when someone attacks me, they attack me with siege first because I do have some siege. So they have to get rid of this siege first before they get access to the rest of my troops. So normally I get one or two rallies for siege, and after my siege is gone, then I get attacked with range or ground or even mixed marches. So that is how I know that my first line of defense is my siege. Then my mixed troops, and lastly, when I lose my power, I am currently around 10 billion power. So when I am down to 2 billion power, all that I have left is actually the wall. All my power comes from these T1s, 2s, and 3s. Okay, so in that order, that's how it works for me. Siege, mixed troops, and wall. So ideally, you would want to work on a combo for siege, then a combo for mixed troops, and then a combo for the wall. This can be a problem because if you don't spend a lot of money in the game, you may not have access to a lot of premium generals and especially a lot of civilization gear. And civilization gear is important because it has a lot of buffs. It is very powerful pieces of gear that you may have. And getting three different sets of these gears is just going to be really difficult. So having three sets of choreo pieces, not really viable for most of us. So we really need to learn which is the heavy part that is doing our defense. So let's say you are a big player and you have a lot of siege, right? So you notice that you are being hit with siege most of the time, especially at the very beginning. The enemy would have to get rid of all your siege before they try to do something else, right? So for you, that it would make sense if you would get a siege general, a siege combo for you doing your defense because that is your first line of defense and also the heaviest part of your defense. So it's gonna take the enemy a lot before they kill all your siege and start working on something else. If you're a big player, that means that you might have access to a second combo. So after your siege is gone, you might need to work on someone like with the mixed troops. Okay, maybe someone for range or ground, depending on what types of troops you have the most. Okay, and lastly, maybe you are a small player and you don't have siege, you don't have a lot of layers. Maybe you are a trap keep and you are focusing on that mounted wall. It might be even a ground wall. A lot of people are doing ground walls now. So if you're a trap keep or a small player who doesn't have a lot of troops and most of your defense is based on the wall, then it is okay to go ahead and get a general specific for the wall. I'm going to show you here one of those generals, which is Queen Borica. She is one of the most common defense generals out there because she works for the mounted pyramid, for the mounted wall. Obviously, she has mounted buffs, and the gear that you use for her will have to improve the mounted troops. Also, the refines, if it is for a wall, it is very highly recommended they use flats. Flats are these ones that have the plus sign instead of the percentage sign. This will increase the attributes of your troops. So low tier troops, they have very bad attributes. So we need to improve that. That is why we use the flats in here. So in all the refine, it will have to be flats. Obviously, if you are a trap keep that uses ground troops, you will need a ground general with ground flats. Okay, so now that we've seen and we've determined what kind of keep you are, now we need to choose the generals, the combos, right? Because they come in pairs. You have the main general and then the assistant general. How do we choose that? The first thing that I'm going to be recommending you is not to copy something that someone else has. There are a lot of big players out there and they are using normally premium generals, and most of us we ask these big players, what generals are you using? And we think that they are taking a good decision, so we go ahead and copy paste whatever they are doing. That is a mistake because these generals, like William Marshall, which is a premium general, this is a great general, but this one works better for someone who has a lot of range and siege troops. And that is normally what big players do. Okay? And the problem here is that in order to be able to get all the buffs from this general, you're going to be needing to ascend this general. And since William Marshall is a premium general, ascending this general is going to be very, very difficult. So if you don't ascend the general, you're going to be wasting all of these buffs. You're not going to get them. So that is why I said that sometimes I see a small player that also wants to use William Marshall because he saw a big player do it, and he's only able to unlock the main skill. So he would only be using these buffs, not all of these ones that are here. So that means that this general would be a bit mediocre. Okay, so let's leave the premium generals for bigger players and people who are spending money in the game so they get access to better generals than us. So, like I said, don't copy paste what other people have. You need to get your own generals. And the good news is that we do have some generals that are in the tavern that are easy to obtain that might work for your keep, especially if you are built like me. As you saw, I do a lot of my defense from all kinds of troops, so I am sort of a mixed troop keep. So for that purpose, I am going to be showing you this general, which is someone that I've been working on lately. I am trying to improve this general because I am going to be switching to this one, and it's Richard the Lionheart. Richard is a great general, not only because he is very easy to obtain, he is in the tavern, so you will be able to unlock all the red stars. You will get all these buffs, which are very important, but we don't like him only because of that, but also because his stats, his buffs are really good. So he has a lot of buffs, and that is a good thing. Another thing that we like about Richard the Lionheart are the specialties. So in this case, you only really need to work on the second specialty. It is applied to the main city defense general, and it's got some hospital capacity, which is not really important, but then some ground and mounted troop attack. Okay, so you work on this, and that's pretty much all you need to do. You can also work on the first one, which is for siege, and the third one as well for siege. But the important part is that the fourth specialty is only hospital capacity, which is not the biggest buff you get from a defense general. So we don't really need to unlock this one. That means that we are not going to be needing a lot of runestones and gems to be working with this general and unlocking all his potential. I'm going to show you here with Queen Boricua, which is the other case. Queen Boricua, she's got a lot of buffs in that last specialty. So if you see here, it also applies to the main city defense general, and there are a lot of buffs here, like mounted troop attack and HP, and there are a lot of buffs in here, meaning that it would be important to try to get these buffs from Boricua, because this is a lot of buffs. That means that you're going to be needing to spend runestones and gems to work on the first three before you are able to unlock the fourth one. As you can see, I am not done yet, and I actually stopped working on that because it was just too expensive, and I am actually now switching to another general, so I wasn't able to get the full potential out of Queen Boricua. That is why, again, I have to recommend Richard the Lionheart. He's a great general to have, easy to obtain in the tavern, great buffs, and also you don't have to spend much on this general. After that, I can also tell you that, like we know, these generals come in pairs. You are going to be needing an assistant. So the assistant doesn't have to be a general that you unlock all the red stars, because the assistants only get the first main skill. Okay, so you can use any general you have in here as an assistant. I went with Isaac Brock because this general has a bunch of ground buffs. And as you saw, I have a lot of ground troops as well, so he works there too. Another good thing about Brock is that he's got the Covenant, and in the Covenant we found a lot of buffs, and that helps me a little bit as well. One thing that I want to mention is that even though we have the skill books here, we need to make sure that these skill books are not repeated because they would cancel each other out. So normally if you're using a mounted general like Boudica, then you're going to be using mounted troop attack or mounted buffs in general, right? Let's say in the case of Leo the Third, which is another great general, he works for siege and range, so you will be having some siege and range books in there. I actually did something different in here. Even though Brock is a ground general, I actually went for range troop attack and these other two books which are really important. Range troop range bonus and also siege machine range bonus. These two books are very important, so I highly recommend that you have them, especially obviously if you have siege troops and range troops, because it's going to increase the range of attack of those troops, and that is a really good option to have when you're doing some defense. Okay, so the last thing that I'm going to be saying for this video is that you don't absolutely have to have a defense general for your wall, for your defense wall, because you can actually put another generals in here. I'm going to show you an example here. I could use someone like Martinus. And I don't want to recommend Roland, for instance, because you do need to make sure that the skills from these generals that you're going to be using are going to be used in general purpose. That means that you can go to the general itself, and in here, let me check Roland. In case you need a mounted general, this again is not a specific general for the wall, but the skills from this general are only used when the general is leading the army to attack. That means that when your troops are leaving the keep, then you're using these buffs. If you are being hit, if your keep is getting hit, these buffs are not coming into play. So it would be a bad idea to use Roland. So if you want to use a generic general, like I said, like Martinus or Electra or so on, make sure you check that general, and that general has to say when the general is leading the army. That's it. Not leading the army to attack, because when you're only leading the army, that means that that general is going to help you also when you are defending. So when your keep gets hit, you would be using these buffs. Okay, so that was the last tip that I wanted to give you, because some small players don't have a lot of access to all of the defense generals, and you may have a general out there that you already worked on. Maybe you have some good specialties or some good red stars in that general, and you could potentially use it in the wall. Okay, so that is it for this video. I hope I was able to help you a little bit, and now I guess you can choose your combo a bit better, making a good decision with making an informed decision with all the stuff that I just taught you. And if you have some questions and you want me to expand on something, just let me know below. You can comment in there, and I will be making a video just for you and expand on that subject. Okay, so I'll see you in the game and have fun.